Thank you for joining me for part 4. I'm sorry it took so long for me to do, but there was a lot of stuff that I had to go over and I needed to put things together on paper. So again, this is part 4 of Dealerships Exposed, and I'm sorry, but this is just me talking. Now to start off, I want to be very clear that this is not an attack on the service advisors. The service advisors are victims in all of this. This is more of an attack on LAcarGUY, their policies, and corporations in general. The advisors who service me, they're just employees. They need to put food on the table during a pandemic. And so we already know that because everyone is hurting for money, service will always hurt more because people can't afford to pay for their car service, and therefore the service advisors don't get paid, the mechanics don't get paid. So, and I really hope that a lot of people can empathize with their situation. They're corporate employees, right? They have big bosses who get a lot of money, and those bosses do not want to make sacrifices. They don't want to change their way of life according to the circumstances of life surrounding them. So they force the people underneath them to make sacrifices. And if those people aren't willing to make sacrifices, well then they're just going to fire them and bring on someone who is willing to make the sacrifices. So please give them a break. They deserve a break. And hopefully, maybe, not hopefully, but I'm pretty sure some of us, or a lot of us, know what it's like to have that situation dangled in front of you on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis if you don't perform. So I'm sure they don't have many good days, so again, cut them a break. As a former dealership employee, I've worked with corporate dealerships and I've worked with mom and pop shops, and you really don't understand how bad your situation is until you actually find a good employer, and that is when your life and perspective changes. So let's start off this video with an explanation of what flag time, book time, flat rate, what those are. There's a lot of videos explaining what it is. It's basically, if you have a job and it pays you 2 hours to do it, it doesn't matter how long you take to get it done, you will get 2 hours paid. Now, but what's the significance of this? Well, what that means is that every single manufacturer, every car manufacturer in the world that has warranty work knows and has specified exactly how much time it takes for each and every single item to be replaced, to be removed, or to be repaired. So that goes from front bumper to rear bumper. They know the ins and outs of the car, they know how much time it takes, and down to the smallest amount of time which they allocate, which is in tenths of an hour. So which 1/10 of an hour would be 6 minutes. Okay. Now, in my past, in my history, Mercedes-Benz documents that removing a seat cushion in the rear seat that doesn't have bolts is 1/10 of an hour, 6 minutes. If it has 2 bolts, then it goes up to like 3/10 of an hour, and that's just to remove and reinstall. So if you watched my video and you watched how fast it was for the rear seat cushion to come up, that would basically be about 6 minutes of work, or 1/10 of 1 hour. And then when you look at the side bolster has 2 bolts on the bottom of it, and it requires removing the bottom cushion, so that would be roughly about 3/10 of an hour with including the bottom cushion removal. 3/10 of an hour being 18 minutes. Okay. Now on a warranty claim, if the dealership takes more time, or if they try to claim multiple procedures that overlap with one another, corporate Toyota will reject all of that and say, this is what you're supposed to get paid, here it is. So they won't pay more than what's agreed to. They won't pay more than what they timed it to be. Now every dealership must follow those rules, because those rules are set by the manufacturer. It's set in the agreements that they sign with the manufacturer in order to be an authorized dealer. If they do not follow that agreement, they lose their authorized dealer status. Now, because the manufacturer does not pay for the non-warranty jobs for customer pay stuff, the dealerships then make their own rules, right? So they no longer have accountability. They have accountability just to themselves, not to you as a customer. those labor times that Toyota holds them to are not available to the general public. How they want to make money is up to them. There's not really a whole lot of laws or whatever that prevent them from doing certain things. So whatever it is that a customer is willing to pay, well, that's what they will charge. Now, to illustrate how they take advantage of this, one shop that I worked with, they had a particular system, a tiered level of labor rate. So at the time that I was working there, you started off at a base rate of $100 per hour. Once you get over 2 hours, then that increases. And then when you go like to 4 to 6 hours, well, that increases yet again. And then the increases stopped happening once you hit like 8 hours of labor, and it capped off at like $160 per hour or something like that. On top of that, on top of the labor rate change, all jobs that were customer pay were whatever the labor rate, time required was then multiplied by 1.5. So to illustrate, if you had a job that was only 1 hour, well, you multiplied that by 1.5, so you would charge 1.5 hours for that job. If you had a 6-hour job, well, you multiplied that by 1.5, and now it becomes a 9-hour job. Now, again, all this factors on top of one another. So if you're going from a 6-hour job, that would normally be $600, right? You would assume so. But unless you knew what that tier was and you knew what the multiplication factor was, you would think that it's $600, but then it becomes more. So that $600 cost for 6 hours now becomes $900 once you factor in the hourly markups at $160 for the 6 hours. And if it was, I'm sorry, just in the hourly markups, and then once you multiply the labor costs by 1.5, that becomes $1,500. Now, not all dealerships do this. Some do a 200% markup, some do a 300%, some don't even do any markup at all. But that's why it's important to shop around. You need to ask these questions, and if you don't ask those questions, the dealers will not tell you. And don't really go to a dealership when they're slow. And I could do a whole different video on about how you should never go to a dealership or any shop when it's slow. But that would be more of me talking, and I'm pretty sure you can find stuff like that on the internet anyway. So I've already digressed plenty, so let's get back to me and my problems, right? Or your problems too, because that's why you're watching the video. Let's compare how differently the two advisors were when they recommended the service and how they handled the conversation. Now, let's start with Michael because he's the actual good example. I haven't worked with him yet, so I can't say for sure if he's a good advisor or not, but just in the conversation, just in the initial impression, when you look at the video and you listen to our conversation, you can see that he is asking me questions to find out if the service is even really necessary, if he can recommend it in good faith, right? Because all maintenance is based upon time. Your oil change, if you don't drive a certain number of miles, you got to do it by a certain number of months. Your coolant, you got to change your coolant every so often. Same thing with brake fluid. That one actually absorbs water, and water in brake fluid is not a good thing, so you want to make sure that you change that every so often as well, based on time or mile. So everything is based on time or miles, and so he asked me how long I've had the car, based upon the years that it is, as well as the miles that I drive it, how much is it used. So then he found out, and then he was able to make a suggestion that, well, they do charge $330 for it. It may not be necessary to clean out the fan, but if they do, they will. I called a bunch of dealerships and I found out the different rates for all the dealerships in the LA area. And that one, Marina Del Rey Toyota charges $165 per hour. So $330, that's roughly 2 hours of labor, right? So calculated in my head over the phone, at $150 is easy to calculate. So I figured, okay, it's about 2 hours of labor. I asked, he agreed, yes, it's 2 hours of labor. He also said that I can call other dealerships. Now, a lot of people say, well, we're the only ones that will do that. or they'll try to get you to feel that they're the ones that's best for the job. I mean, who doesn't, right? But to get that suggestion from another dealership, say, call our competitors. That's a good thing. That shows confidence that they have a good price. Now, as you probably saw in the video, if you did watch it, you saw that I didn't need to ask, well, pretty much any questions. He volunteered all the information. What they take apart. I had to pry that from the other guy in Santa Monica. Anyway, we'll talk about him later. And in addition to that, he also talked about visiting YouTube to look at a video on how to do the repair. An advisor gets paid for me to bring my car to him. And he's telling me that I don't need to do that without even knowing me, without knowing my skills. That means that it really is an easy job to do. You don't need a technician to do something like that. You don't need a technician to replace your wiper blades because the instructions are kind of easy. But you know, just because he says I don't need to do it, and that gives something to say about him, you know, about the character. He's encouraging, he's very forthright about what's going on, and those are all good signs. I'm not a customer of his, but going forward, I might be. Going forward even further, that might change, because usually once I become a customer and once I start asking them more questions about how things are going, that's when lies and deceptions become revealed a little bit more. And you know, nobody likes being lied to, right? So no one likes being lied to, no one likes being taken advantage of. So hopefully he's a good guy through and through. Now let's talk about Santa Monica Toyota. Normally I prefer just to take my cars, I say exactly this is what I need to get done, and that's it, right? Once I start recommending things, that's when I start asking questions. As far as questions go, apparently Toyota Santa Monica in general, they don't like questions being asked. Now if you saw the video, I made a mistake, big mistake, of using generalizations instead of being specific to my vehicle. As you heard in the video, the advisor said that he's not in charge of certain things, that all that information comes from corporate, which would be LAcarGUY.
Yeah, I get it. It's
Yeah.
expensive. Yeah, it's expensive maintenance. I can just tell you I'm a service advisor. I don't make the prices. I just relay what the company sells it for. Sir, you're barking down the wrong tree. I don't make the prices. I just tell you asked what the service cost. I told you the cost. If you'd like, you can go to corporate or speak to a service manager if you'd like.
And that if I have a problem, I need to take it up with corporate. So here we are. The more people that know, the more people can talk about it, and the more people can walk away from corporate LAcarGUY probably before they change their policies. I really do hope that they change their policies sooner than later. Alright? Now, Santa Monica, he said that it's 2 hours. 2 hours. Plus parts and labor. If you watch the video, you already know that there are no parts for my car. It's basically a piece of pantyhose over the thing, and that doesn't need to be replaced because, as you saw on mine, I was able to clean it. Okay? Use a vacuum. Most shops actually don't have a vacuum. They have compressed air, so that's why they need to remove everything, because if you shove compressed air into it, the dirt will go further into the battery, and that's dangerous. Okay? But if, as a consumer, I have a vacuum. I have 2 vacuums in my house, and I have a shop vac in the garage. So again, it's 2 hours of labor, including parts. But we've already discussed I have no parts, and therefore, and I asked him, so if I don't have parts, does that rate change? No, it does not change the rate.
Okay, then it could just be cleaning the ducts on your vehicle.
Okay, so how much would that be?
It's same price.
Same price. So I'm still stuck with $700 of just labor. Now, I made a phone call to Toyota Santa Monica. Their labor rate is $188 per hour. Okay, if they're doing 2 hours of labor at the labor rate of $188 per hour, where does $700 come from? Because that's $350 per hour. I don't understand. Can someone explain to me? because the math does not make sense to me. Anyway, now the Santa Monica guy did also say that, well, if we don't have to remove the seats, they'll take $200 off. Okay, and so it'll be $500 instead of $700. Now, folding the seats down does not equal removing them. However, the recommended procedure is to remove the side bolster, which then does require removing the bottom seat cushion. So they're not removing all the seating as like they're describing over the phone, but they really don't have to justify anything to me, to you, to the customer, because we're not allowed in the shop. We don't have the labor time codes. We don't have anything in our evidence pile to conjure up. So he's not going to go against his boss. He's not going to jeopardize his job to do you a favor or listen to you or whatever. If you don't like the prices, go to another dealership, right? So that still doesn't explain why they're charging $350 per hour versus the $188 that they say. So my particular case, my video proves that my fan didn't need to be cleaned. Marina Del Rey said that my fan probably doesn't need to be cleaned. Santa Monica didn't even make any mention of I probably didn't even need the service, right? So he's not trying to be honest or straightforward that based on mileage or based on time, I probably don't need the service. Now, your case might be a little bit different. Your car might be a little bit older. Your car might have more miles. You might have pets. You might have more passengers. You might be an Uber driver, you know. So all that factors in, even driving with your windows down versus air conditioning. My situation is different from yours. When I was talking with the advisor, you can hear it in his attitude. He was starting to shut down. I asked him questions. He really didn't want to start answering them. So because of that, I wasn't even able to address why I was quoted $752 versus the standard $700, right? That's not standardized if it's custom to me. So, you know, maybe I thought, well, maybe they did like included tax in it, right? Well, no, they didn't include tax because Santa Monica has a 10.25% tax rate. That's a lot, and if you factor in tax, well then that would be $770, not $752. So tax was not a factor. Was it maybe because I had a child seat in the back? I don't think so. In general, they don't really deal with child seats. I mean, they'll remove them, but they won't put them back due to liability issues. Like all the dealerships that I've ever worked with, we always had directions that if there was a child seat that was left over, they prefer that parents remove it at first. But if there was one left over, then we would remove it at no extra charge, but then we would not install it due to liability because you're supposed to go through training to put them in. Okay. Now, I'll probably never find out why they chose to have a higher quote for me unless they make a video response or something. Now, with Michael, with Marina Del Rey, I barely had to ask him any questions. Santa Monica, I had to be like, I felt like I needed CIA, FBI training in order to get a basic answer out of him. Okay, I'm not an interrogator. I don't want to be an interrogator. I just want to ask a question to help satisfy the reason why I need to do something. Especially when it comes to my car, especially when it's almost $1,000 worth of work for cleaning a filter. And then, in addition to his overall lack of cooperation, he mocks me. He mocks me with the question, well, did you want to do it yourself?
Okay, so
Yeah.
did you want to do it yourself? I don't understand what your...
You know, I probably got him on a bad day. Let's just hope I got him on a bad day. He's already dealing with corporate policies that he may or may not agree with, and you know, he's got to feed his family, right? But whatever the case, just in general, to be a happy person, don't be that guy. Don't be the guy that rolls over. Don't be the corporate shill who just casts morals aside just to get a few bucks this week, because what that does, you will lose customers with that attitude. A customer won't go to Santa Monica Toyota and say, oh, I'm never going to Santa Monica Toyota again, they'll remember the name of the advisor and say, I'm never going to that advisor again. So if that advisor goes from Santa Monica to Marina Del Rey and that customer sees him, he's going to be like, I don't want to work with that guy. So as a person, don't do that. If you're an advisor, try to be better so that a customer doesn't see you as the bad guy, but sees the corporate as the bad guy instead. Okay, that's the goal. Corporate is bad. The person that's trying to help you or trying to translate your car problems, they're trying to help you. They're the victim in the middleman game. Okay, don't shoot the messenger, right? So, you know, but the problem is when a customer finds out that they've been lied to, that they've been taken advantage of, they see the person. They see the person that did it. They didn't see the company that did it. And what they'll do is they'll take the money that could have gone to feed your child, do your child support, feed your wife, your ex-wife, take care of your bad habits or your hobbies. They will take that money and give it to your competitor, who might be a bad person, but because they have good policies. And they'll never come back to you. Change the policies. That's all I'm asking. You guys, do you feel that $752 is a good deal for that service? No, absolutely not. It is not a good deal. When you have questions, you want an advisor that asks you questions also. You want an advisor that takes the time to educate you. You want an advisor that listens to you, that doesn't mock you for asking questions, okay? Now, is $300 a good deal? Yeah, you know, maybe. It might be a good deal, you know, depending on if you're not a capable person of being handy. And that'll save you some time and some headache and cursing and probably some blood. But if you have the capability, $300 is not a good deal. Do you get paid $300 per hour? You can do that job in an hour even if you were like really slow. Okay, closing thoughts. I hope you guys in corporate are listening. I hope you guys take note of the public opinion. I hope you guys take note of how your customers are feeling. I hope you guys take note of how the math does not make sense. So, and I really hope you guys do something about however you guys are dishing out morale and however you guys are trying to increase morale, because your service advisors that I've talked with at Santa Monica dealership do not seem happy. They don't seem like they are enjoying their job. They don't seem like they are fighting a good fight. What they seem like is, it feels like there's a sign in the office saying the beatings will cease when morale improves. And that's not how you improve morale. I mean, it's a terrible joke that's been in existence for a long time, but you guys need to change something. Like, there are other dealerships out there. As you saw the list, LAcarGUY, you are the 2 most expensive dealerships in the entire list. What are your benefits for the customers? Why should I go to you versus why should I go to another dealership that's $40 an hour cheaper than you? What benefits do I get as your customer? I have not found or felt any benefit from being a customer other than a lighter pocket. And yes, I do need to lose weight, but that is not the right way to lose weight. So, you know, please change your policies, because your advisors are suffering. When your advisors suffer, your mechanics suffer. And when your mechanics suffer, your customer base suffers. And when your customer base suffers, your pocketbooks suffer in the long run too. So, things are slow now. You have the time, you have the ability to analyze and make a change. So please do that. That's all I ask. Also, maybe if someone could explain to me how I have such a huge quote versus everyone else. I would love to hear that too. Please respond. Thank you.